In 2001, when all of you, the international community, arrived to help Afghanistan, as I mentioned, we got freed of that creeping invasion in less than a month and a half, without really any fighting, without much fighting. I remember the Taliban leaving villages and the community leaders and tribal chiefs taking over. I remember districts and provinces falling without a fight. And I remember the Afghan people coming to me in large numbers when I became the president, asking for more international troops in Afghanistan, asking for more assistance from the world in Afghanistan, expressing immense happiness. I also remember, Mr. Foreign Minister, that the Taliban, a great majority of them, went back to their villages and settled down in their villages. They did not want to fight. They did not want to carry on what they were doing before September 11. And that is why those 3-4 years from 2002 to 2004-05, we had a very, very peaceful Afghanistan. It was around 2004-05, and I must say this here, that I began to have trickles of news coming to me as the president of the country, informing me of what our neighbors in Pakistan were doing in trying to attract back the Taliban and regroup them and reorganize them and prepare them. And that's where I have my greatest complaint with my allies, the Americans, our friends. Immediately we began to tell them that this is what's happening there. We gave them names, places, locations, entities, organizations that were doing that, and who and how they were contacting people inside Afghanistan. Around this time, unfortunately, in the military campaign against extremism, the United States began to actively engage its military in Afghan villages, in Afghan homes and Afghan towns. This again, we went and told the United States was wrong. In a manner of pleading, the Afghan villagers would come to me and say, President, why are they doing this? They are supposed to be our allies. And I would bring them to the palace from the villages of Afghanistan, and I would make them sit down with American generals so they would hear it from our people directly, but to no avail. They kept doing that. So civilian casualties, violation of Afghan sovereignty, keeping prisons, and the creation of parallel structures to the Afghan government, the creation of private security firms on the one hand, by our friends, by our allies, the United States and our other allies, and also the opportunity that this gave to the establishment in Pakistan to recruit and reorganize and send against us. A deadly combination of a sanctuary and of increasing disappointment of the Afghan people led to what we have today. The re-emergence of the Taliban as a force, and now having more territory in Afghanistan than you would ever imagine. The Taliban themselves, you compared them to Jaish-e-Mohammed and the other terrorist organizations. Those Taliban who are Afghans, who are not of an ideological inclination or who don't have an ideological foundation that inculcates extremism, violence, and all that. They are Afghans, they are from our villages. The moment you give them an opportunity, they would return and settle down peacefully in Afghanistan. Individually, all of them would agree with you. When you sit down with them and talk to them individually, all of them would agree with you. How things are wrong, how they would like to come back to their own country and live peacefully. They're not against education for women. They're not against Afghanistan having a dignified life. They're not against life. But organizationally, they are not in charge. Organizationally, they are in the grips of a very powerful, very experienced intelligence body that knows how to use and exploit movements and people.
Which is this intelligence body?
Well, this is clearly our neighbors in Pakistan, the ISI. And that's where the United States did not do with us what we were seeking from them for years. They would come to us, they would admit it, yes, this is the case, but on action, they would fall much shorter than our expectation.
मैं देखकर ताज्जुब किया, ये क्या कर रहे हैं? बापू की जगह ले लिए, महात्मा गांधी की जगह आप बैठ गए। तो बीजेपी के लोगों ने कहा कि हाँ